Hello, I'm an old fart, and I have a guilty pleasure. I like knives. You're looking at one of a series of videos where I'm sharing a view into my collection of small folding pocket knives. I'm not an expert or an official representative of anyone or anything in any way. I just like knives. In this episode, we're going to have a look at this little knife. A EZC 2.0 by Monterey Bay Knives. Now, Monterey Bay Knives is, of course, a US company, so I'm sure they pronounce it EZC, and that it's meant to be a riff on the idea of easy carry, which it certainly is. However, that letter is pronounced Z everywhere in the world outside the USA, so this is the MBK EZC 2.0. I had read and seen YouTube reviews of the EZC 1.0, and I really liked what I heard and saw. However, by the time I learned about this knife, it was unavailable. Monterey Bay Knives is one of those small shops that sells all they can make and always leaves people wanting more. They never have any inventory, and their announced drops of knives usually sell out within a day. One of the partners in Monterey Bay Knives is Ray Laconico, a respected knife designer. As an aside, yes, that is how you pronounce his name, Laconico. I've heard people speculating whether it was pronounced some other way, such as Laconico, but you can find a YouTube video where an interviewer asks him and he confirms his name is Laconico. Frankly, I've never really imagined that it would be pronounced any other way, and I'm always a little surprised and annoyed at the way people butcher the pronunciation of unfamiliar names. It's just not that hard. Well, I have several of Ray's knives now, and this group is my first family of knives where I can clearly see the mark of the designer in each. So just for example, there's this, the EZC 2.0, the larger XLC, the beautiful old guard, the strangely named EZC 1.5, and also two others that I didn't end up getting. Anyway, back to the EZC 2.0. Monterey Bay Knives are called hard to get. I haven't found that to be the case. Once I realize I want one of their models, I keep an eye on their news announcements to know when they will be made available. I set up a calendar alarm, I make sure I'm ready, I work quickly, and I've always managed to capture one. Anyway, I wasn't able to get an EZC 1.0, and then this, the 2.0, appeared. I was very pleased to be able to snap one up. This is a titanium-bodied frame lock side flipper. A few things about size. The blade is exactly 3 inches in length. And I mention that because 3 inches is an important threshold in certain jurisdictions. Those are usually called under 3-inch laws, so I don't know what it means for a blade that is precisely 3 inches. Is that in or out of the legal range? So if you live in an under 3-inch jurisdiction, you better check the specifics of your laws to know whether this life at exactly 3 inches would be legal for you. Closed, it's considerably smaller than a pocket comb, so it pockets and carries very easily. One of the changes from the 1.0 model is that this is an integral frame lock, which means the body is a single piece of milled titanium. The 1.0, like many others, is 2 pieces of metal that were joined by screws through the sides. This, on the other hand, is a single block of titanium, except for the clip. So very solid and has a rather elegant and modern look. As I said, it's a side flipper, and the blade runs on bearings very smoothly. It has a very strong detent. In fact, I think too strong, and we're going to come back to that. It locks open very securely, and there are never misfires. When you activate that flip, it opens fast and loud and firmly. Next, it's not easy to get excited about a pocket clip, but this clip is really beautiful. It's a separate piece of titanium attached by 2 screws. It's made of the same material as the main body and finished to the same satin finish. And the shape mirrors the shape of the body. It's sculpted with the top being curved in a way that reflects the curve of the body. The ends are curved in the same proportions as the curve of the ends of the body, and this slot in the center, which serves no mechanical purpose, echoes the decorative groove on the presentation side of the knife. So it really is a work of art. Oh, and it clips very securely too. The clip is one side only. See, there are no holes to mount the clip on the other side. Now, since I don't want to do that, I consider this an advantage because it leaves the presentation side unspoiled. But if you wanted left side carry, you'd consider that a disadvantage, of course. There is no lanyard hole, which makes sense. This is not really a lanyardy kind of a knife, and a fob would spoil the clean, symmetric appearance. Finally, although it isn't marked, the blade is M390 steel. That's a great steel, and more on that in a moment. There is a lot to like about this knife. I love the look. It is a classic Ray Laconico design, with the symmetric shape, simple lines, beautiful blade shape. Everything about the knife is subtle and understated. If, for example, look at the blade. We have the elegant MBK logo on one side, Laconico's name on the spine, and nothing else. The design feels no need to proclaim the steel type or where it's made or part numbers or serial numbers or the name of their website or anything else. The titanium frame's satin finish is elegant and it doesn't fingerprint. It does develop snail trails, and there are a few developing on the outside of the clip, the only part that's exposed when the knife is pocketed. Now let's come back to the blade. It is really beautiful. I like drop point blades, and this one's shape and proportions are just about perfect. It has a good point for piercing, and it is thin and slicey. M390 is considered one of the super steels. It has excellent edge retention, which is paid for with some difficulty in sharpening. With patience and good abrasives, it does take a very nice mirror finish. See if I can get that finish reflecting there. And that will last a long time. There is a small sharpening choil here, and with no thumb stud obstruction, accessing the entire edge with the sharpening stone is easy. The EZC 2.0 is surprisingly comfortable for a relatively small knife. I get a complete 3-finger grip on the body and an easy wrap around of my pinky, which is comfortable because of the rounded edge and chamfered edges. When open, the flipper tab becomes a finger guard as well. So that's the good. There are a couple of things I don't like about this knife, one big and one minor. Let's deal with the big problem first. The knife is hard to open. First, there's very little jimping on the flipper tab, so your finger doesn't really get a good grip for flipping. But the real problem is that the detent is very strong. Very, very strong. Too strong. It's not really adjustable. Loosening the lock bar works, of course, but of course that also loosens the lock, so not really a viable solution. I tried disassembling the knife, but nothing is binding, nothing needed cleaning or lubrication. It's just an ultra strong detent. Hopefully it will loosen up with use. I've noticed that with other knives. I'm not sure what's happening when a detent loosens up with time. Is the detent ball wearing? Or the detent socket opening up? Or is it just me, the user, improving my technique? So, I don't know. I seem to be making a big deal of this, but it's important. It would be nearly impossible to open this knife in slippery conditions, for example. such as with wet hands or oily hands. Just as a comparison, I'll bring back in, here's the MBC, or MBK EZC 1.5, which, despite the smaller model number, is a newer version of this knife. Now, it's a liner lock, and so the detent is not quite as forceful. And just look at how it flips open. Oh yes, that is what a flipper should feel like. I could do that all day. Now compare that to the strain I'm having to go through to get this EZC 2.0 to fire. This is the hardest knife in my collection to open. I have some friends, elderly people with arthritis, who would simply not be able to open this knife. And I can easily imagine reaching that point myself, where I will not have the finger strength to flip it open. I mentioned there was one other thing I didn't like, and that's this. It's not much, but it's a thing. The almost mirror polished blade is really pretty, but it really shows fingerprints. I find myself constantly feeling a need to polish the blade to remove the embarrassing smudges that my handling has left. I would prefer a slightly more satin blade that didn't emphasize fingerprints so much. Now, let's go through my internationally unrecognized rating system. First, the NTGK rating. How does this do as a non-threatening gentleman's knife? Well, let's look at the NT part first. Is this knife non-threatening? Can I open it and handle it without scaring people who are nervous about knives? Well, I'll give it a plus for its elegant, non-aggressive look. It definitely looks like a classy tool, not a weapon. Okay. However, it's going to lose major non-threatening points because of that super strong detent. Because of that detent, it can't be opened slowly. It can't be opened two-handed, and it can't be opened quietly. When the strong detent does release, it flies open with a loud click. I challenge you to do that in a room with nervous people and have no one think or say, "Switchblade!" So I'm going to give it a B+ for non-threatening. But I'll give it an A+ as a gentleman's knife. It's pocketable, it's simple, it's elegant, and it's a perfect size. So as an NTGK, a B+ and an A+ will give it an A. If I could open the damn thing, it would be an A++. Next, my KN rating. What will my knife nerd friends think of this knife? Well, it's a respected name, a respected designer, a great blade, and premium steel, and a boutique manufacturer with a bit of a hard-to-get mystique. It would be an A+ easily if it wasn't so hard to open, but that's going to pull it down to an A. So in summary, there's a lot to like about this knife, but I don't actually carry it very often because of that one major shortcoming. It has a gorgeous design, elegant, simple, symmetric, beautiful blade. It should be a great knife for light office carry use. The extreme difficulty in opening makes it a poor choice for emergency or survival type use, but that's not what it's for. Right now I'm stuck in a kind of a catch-22 with this knife. I think the opening might get easier with use, but because it's so hard to open, I'm not carrying and using it very often. So we'll see what happens in the longer term. And that brings us to the end of the tour of this knife, the Monterey Bay Knives EZC 2.0. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.